I watched my girlfriend of 3 years kiss another man at her own birthday party, 30 seconds after I'd gotten down on one knee. The engagement ring was still in my trembling hand when Victoria finally pulled away and turned to face me. The entire rooftop restaurant went silent. 78 guests stared at me with pity, amusement, or both. "Marcus," she said my name, like it disgusted her. "What the hell are you doing?" I couldn't speak. The man beside her was tall, silver-haired, easily twice her age, wrapped his arm around her waist possessively. "I came to propose," I managed. Before I continue my true life story, kindly like, subscribe, and share this with your friends and family. Victoria threw her head back and laughed. The sound echoed off the glass walls. "Propose? With that pathetic chip?" She waved at the ring dismissively. "Marcus, I'm marrying Richard Castellano." "You know the Richard Castellano? Owner of Castellano Industries?" My stomach dropped. Richard Castellano, $3 billion. "We've been together 3 years," I said quietly. "Oh, sweetheart." Victoria addressed the crowd with mock sympathy. "Should I tell them? About how you're just a broke programmer in a studio apartment? How I've been slumming it with you while waiting for a real man?" The guests erupted in cruel laughter. Someone shouted, "Savage!" Another was recording on their phone. Richard stepped forward in Italian leather shoes worth more than my car. "Listen, kid, Victoria needs a provider, not some code monkey who thinks a $1,000 ring is impressive." He pulled out a small box and opened it. A diamond the size of a quail egg glittered under the lights. "This is a real proposal. $5 million. I gave it to her last week." Victoria squealed and kissed him again, making sure I saw everything. "Get out, Marcus," she said without looking at me. "You're embarrassing yourself. You're a nobody, a failure, a waste of space." I wanted to tell her the truth right then, that my studio apartment was temporary during renovations, that my programming job was actually my tech company, Quantum Solutions, valued at $847 million, that I'd hidden my wealth to find someone who loved me, not my money. But I said nothing. I just walked out, while her laughter followed me like a curse. 4 weeks later, the wedding invitation arrived. Cream-colored cardstock, gold embossing, Victoria and Richard's names intertwined. She was inviting me to watch her marry someone else, to humiliate me one final time. "You're not actually going?" my assistant David asked when he found me staring at it. "I am," I said quietly. "But I'm not going alone." I was walking from the grocery store when I set my eyes on a young lady huddled in a doorway on 5th Avenue. It looked like she was begging for food or grocery, and I felt bad for her. Even covered in grime, she was breathtaking. Heart-shaped face, amber eyes that held both fear and strength, honey brown hair that would probably fall in waves when clean. 21, maybe younger. She was clutching a photograph and crying softly. "Hey," I said gently, crouching down. "Are you okay?" She looked up, startled, and wiped her eyes quickly. "I'm fine. I don't want trouble." "No trouble. I'm Marcus." I held out my hand. She stared at it suspiciously. "Aria." "Aria. Pretty name." I paused. "This is going to sound insane, but I have a proposal for you." She laughed bitterly. "I'm homeless, not stupid. I know what men usually want. Not that." I sat beside her on the dirty concrete. "I need a date to a wedding, my ex's wedding. She humiliated me in front of everyone, and I want to show up with someone so stunning she chokes on her champagne." Her eyebrows rose. "You want me? Look at me." "I see you. I want you to pretend you're not homeless. Just for one night. I'll handle everything. Clothes, hair, makeup, plus $5,000 cash, and you keep everything I buy you." Her breath caught. $5,000? Tomorrow morning, before we even start shopping. She looked down at the photograph, a young woman with the same amber eyes, smiling at the camera. "Okay," she whispered. "I'll do it." The transformation took 3 days. I booked her a suite at the plaza. While she soaked in her first real bath in 7 months, I assembled a team. Stylist, makeup artist, personal shopper. When she emerged on day 2, I forgot how to breathe. Her dark hair fell in glossy waves. Her skin glowed, but it was her eyes that destroyed me. Those amber pools now sparkled with something new. Hope. Too much? She asked nervously. Not enough, I said. We're going to Valentino. Over those days, I learned her story. Parents died when she was 17. No family. Foster care until 18. Lost her job when the restaurant closed. Couldn't pay rent. The spiral happened fast. The photograph was of her mother on her wedding day. She was the most beautiful person I knew, Arya said softly at Bergdorf Goodman. Not just looks. Her heart. She made everyone feel special. She gestured at herself. I try to be like her, but I failed. Doom created. End quote. You didn't fail, I said firmly. Life failed you. There's a difference. She looked at me, then really looked, and something electric passed between us. Why are you really doing this? She asked. I told her everything. Victoria. The public proposal. The humiliation. The wedding invitation was designed to twist the knife. That's horrible, she breathed. What kind of person does that? The kind who thinks money is everything. But you have money. She gestured around. Obviously. I do. I wanted her to love me for me. Instead, she thought I was worthless. I met her eyes. Like how people walk past you every day and think you're worthless because you're homeless. Tears filled her eyes. We're not so different. Both invisible, for opposite reasons. Maybe that's why I noticed you. She reached across and took my hand. Her fingers were warm. Thank you for seeing me. The night of the wedding, Arya stood before the mirror, in an emerald silk gown that cost more than most cars. The color made her eyes look like liquid gold. Diamond earrings caught the light. I look like a princess, she whispered. You look like a queen, I corrected. Ready? She turned to me, fear flickering across her face. What if I mess up? I don't know which fork to use, or how to talk to rich people. What if I embarrass you? I crossed to her and took both her hands. You could show up in a potato sack and still be the most real person there. These people are all actors playing roles. You're the only genuine thing I've seen in years. You barely know me. I know enough. I lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. I know you cried over your mother's photo instead of begging for money. I know you asked me 20 times if I was sure about spending so much. I know you tried to give half your money to that other homeless woman we passed. That tells me everything. She was crying now, careful not to ruin her makeup. No one's ever been this kind to me. Then you've been surrounded by the wrong people. Victoria's wedding was at the Rosewood Estate in the Hamptons. The parking lot showcased wealth, Ferraris, Lamborghinis, helicopters on the lawn. We pulled up in my Aston Martin Valkyrie, one of only 150 in the world. Arya's hand trembled as I helped her out. People turned to stare. Head up, I murmured. You belong here more than any of them. We walked in together. Guests mingled in a ballroom decorated with $1 million worth of white roses. Victoria spotted us immediately. Her champagne glass froze halfway to her lips. Her eyes traveled from me to Arya, then widened. Marcus, she breathed, breaking away from her group. Victoria, beautiful wedding. I kept my voice pleasant. This is Arya, my girlfriend. Arya smiled, radiant and warm, and extended her hand. Lovely to meet you. Marcus has told me so much. I almost laughed at Victoria's expression. She was trying to process how the pathetic broke programmer was standing here with a woman who looked like she'd stepped off a runway. Your girlfriend, Victoria repeated faintly. 6 months now. I lied smoothly. We met at a charity gala. She was representing her family's foundation. Arya didn't miss a beat. The foundation helps homeless youth. It's important to give back. Victoria's face cycled through shock, jealousy, and calculation. I didn't realize you moved in such elevated circles. You never asked, I said simply. Richard Castellano appeared, his expression annoyed. Victoria, the wedding planner needs. He stopped, eyeing Arya with predatory appreciation. And who is this vision? Richard asked. Arya, she said coolly, stepping closer to me. Marcus's girlfriend. Marcus? Richard's forehead wrinkled. Don't tell me you're that nobody from the birthday party? The one with the cheap ring? A crowd was forming, sensing drama. That's me, I said cheerfully, though Arya might disagree about the nobody part. I turned to her. Darling, what was it you said about me? Something about character? I said the measure of a man isn't his bank account, Arya said, her voice carrying across the now silent crowd. It's how he treats people when no one's watching. And Marcus? She looked up at me with genuine warmth. He's the best man I've ever known. I wanted to kiss her right then. The sincerity in her delivery made it devastatingly believable. Victoria's face went red. How touching. Now, if you'll excuse us, we have a wedding to prepare for. Of course, I said. We wouldn't want to miss it. The ceremony was excruciating. Not because I still cared about Victoria. Those feelings had died at her birthday party. But watching her marry someone twice her age for money was depressing. She recited her vows like reading a grocery list. During the reception, Arya leaned close. She doesn't love him. No, I agreed. She loves his money. That's sad. Her hand found mine under the table. Money can't make you happy if your soul is empty. We danced. She fit perfectly in my arms. You're a good dancer, I murmured. My mom taught me. She said every girl should know how to waltz in case a prince asks. Her smile turned wistful. I used to think she was silly. Now I wish I could tell her she was right. She'd be proud of you. You think so? I know so. I pulled her closer. You survived the worst and didn't let it destroy your kindness. That takes real strength. Marcus, may I cut in? Richard appeared beside us, smiling predatorily. Every muscle tensed. I don't think. It's okay, Arya said softly, though her eyes told me it wasn't. One dance. I watched Richard lead her away. He held her too close, said something that made her face harden. When his hand slipped lower on her back, I started toward them. But Arya handled it. She stepped back, said something quietly, and walked off the floor with her head high. What did he say? I asked when she reached me. He offered me $50,000 to leave you and be his mistress. Her voice shook with rage. He said Victoria's fine with it as long as it's discreet, that this is how their arrangement works. If things, I saw red. That son of a... Don't. She caught my arm. He's not worth it. She's not worth it. Let them have their miserable marriage. We're better than that. We're con. We're con. The we made something flutter in my chest. 2 weeks later, we were having dinner at my penthouse when I told her the real reason I needed her, and it was because there's a deal, I explained. $750 million from international investors. They're choosing between my company and Castellano Industries. Her fork paused. Richard's company. Yes. These investors value family, stability. They want to invest in someone trustworthy and settled. I took a breath. They're coming to dinner in 3 days. I need them to believe I'm in a serious relationship. So you need me to pretend again. I know it's a lot, Marcus. She set down her fork. You gave me my life back. You showed me kindness when no one else would. Of course I'll help. You don't owe me anything. Maybe not. But I want to anyway. She smiled. Besides, I'm getting good at being a fake girlfriend. But it hadn't felt fake for a while. Not to me. Over the past 2 weeks, Arya had been staying in my guest room. Every morning, I woke to the smell of coffee she made. Every evening, we had dinner and talked for hours. She showed me her sketchbook page after page of beautiful drawings. I showed her my code, explaining the algorithms that built my fortune. We fit together in a way I'd never experienced. The night before the investor dinner, I found her on the balcony, staring at city lights. Nervous? I asked. A little? These investors are important to you. The deal would change everything. Let me expand, hire people, develop technology that could help millions. I paused. But honestly, even if I lose the deal, I won't regret this. Why not? Because I found you. She turned to face me, moonlight catching her features perfectly. Marcus, I need to tell you something. These past weeks, this hasn't felt like pretending. I know it should, but somewhere along the way, I started having real feelings for you. My heart hammered. Arya, let me finish. She took a shaky breath. I'm scared that after this dinner, you won't need me anymore. That I'll go back to being invisible. And I don't know if I can handle that, now that I know what it feels like to be seen by you. I cupped her face. You want to know a secret? I've been falling for you since the moment you asked if I was sure about spending so much on you. Because no one in my entire life has ever cared more about me than what I could give them, except you. I don't care about your money, she whispered. I know. That's why I'm in love with you. Her breath caught. You love me? Desperately. Completely. I smiled. If you want to leave after tomorrow, I'll understand. But I'm hoping you'll stay. Not as my fake girlfriend, as my real one. Her answer was pulling me into a kiss that made the world disappear. The investor dinner was at Le Bernardin. I reserved the private room. 6 investors arrived promptly, 5 men and 1 woman, from Dubai, Singapore, Hong Kong, and London. Arya wore navy blue, elegant, and understated. She looked every inch the sophisticated partner of a successful CEO. Gentlemen, Miss Chen, I greeted them. This is Arya, my girlfriend. They warmed to her immediately. Arya had a gift for making people comfortable. She asked thoughtful questions about their families, businesses, cities. She spoke passionately about art galleries in Singapore, architecture in Dubai. Hassan al-Rashid, the Dubai investor, was particularly charmed. Your girlfriend is delightful, Marcus. How long together? Almost 7 months, Arya said, taking my hand. Best 7 months of my life. Young love, Miss Chen said with a smile. It reminds me of when I met my husband. That's when I knew I wanted to build something lasting. The conversation flowed to business. I presented my 5-year plan, the technology we were developing, the markets we'd serve. Richard and Victoria arrived 15 minutes late, looking flustered and annoyed. Apologies, Richard said smoothly, though his eyes were cold. Traffic. Victoria's gaze landed on us, and something flickered across her face. Jealousy? Regret? Richard's presentation was polished, but cold. He spoke about profit margins and returns, maximizing value, minimizing risk. When he finished, Mr. Tanaka asked, And your wife? Is she involved in the business? Victoria? Richard glanced at her dismissively. No, she's more of a social asset, networking events, that sort of thing. The way he said it made Victoria's face flush. In contrast, when Miss Chen asked about Arya's involvement, I jumped in immediately. Arya's been invaluable. Her design background shaped our interface approach. Her insights into what real users need versus what we think they need has saved us from costly mistakes. It was true. I'd been bouncing ideas off her, and her perspective as someone who'd struggled proved incredibly valuable. A true partnership, Hassan said approvingly. That's what we like to see. 3 days later, the investors chose my company. $750 million. Largest deal in quantum solutions history. I should have been celebrating. Instead, I was holding Arya as she sobbed. What's wrong? I asked desperately. What happened? She pulled back, face streaked with tears. Marcus, I need to tell you something. Something I should have told you from the beginning. My stomach dropped. What? My last name isn't Evans. It's Castellano. She saw my expression and rushed on. Richard Castellano is my uncle, my father's brother. The world tilted. What? My parents died, and Richard was supposed to take me in. He was my legal guardian. But she swallowed hard. He said I was in too much trouble. He had lawyers make me an emancipated minor at 17, gave me $10,000, and told me never to contact him again. That he didn't want anyone knowing he had a homeless niece. Jesus Christ. When you told me about Victoria and Richard, I recognized his name, but I never imagined you'd need me for a business deal with him. And at the wedding, seeing him, I realized I couldn't tell you. You needed this deal. And if you knew who I was, you might think I'd sabotage it. Stop. I pulled her close. Stop, Arya. None of that matters. But I lied. You survived. There's a difference. I pulled back to look at her. Does Richard know who you are? I don't think so. I looked different than at 17, and he barely looked at me then. I was just an inconvenience. Something cold settled in my chest. Arya, would you be willing to tell the investors the truth? About Richard? About what he did? She paled. Why? Because they valued family, commitment. I want them to know exactly what kind of man they almost gave $750 million to. I called an emergency meeting for the next day. Richard and Victoria were already there when we arrived. Richard looking smug, Victoria resigned. What's this about? Richard demanded. I thought you'd decided. We have, Hassan said. But new information has come to light. Richard's eyes narrowed. What information? I nodded at Arya. She took a deep breath. My name is Arya Castellano, she said clearly. Richard Castellano is my uncle. 10 years ago, when I was 17, and my parents died, Richard became my legal guardian. Instead of taking me in, he had lawyers make me legally emancipated, gave me $10,000, and told me never to contact him again because a teenage niece would be inconvenient. The room went silent. Richard's face turned purple. That's a lie. I've never seen this woman. Really? Arya pulled out her phone. This is my father, Marcus Castellano, your younger brother. Here's another from Dad's funeral. That's you in the background. She swiped. And this is the check. $10,000 to erase me from your life. I kept it, never cashed it. It felt like blood money. Victoria stared at Richard in horror. You told me you didn't have family. You said you were an only child. She's lying, Richard sputtered. This is some scheme. I have DNA results if you need them, Arya said calmly. The results confirm we share 25% DNA, consistent with uncle-niece. Miss Chen looked disgusted. Mr. Castellano, you presented yourself as a family man. You spoke about values, yet you abandoned your own niece, made her emancipated at 17? I wound up homeless, Arya continued, voice steady despite tears. For years, sleeping in doorways, going hungry, wondering why I wasn't worth loving. And all that time, my uncle was building his fortune, living in a mansion, pretending I didn't exist. Hassan stood. I've heard enough. Mr. Castellano, our group has zero interest in doing business with someone so morally bankrupt. You can't be serious. Richard was sweating. Over some girl I barely knew? She was family, Mr. Tanaka said quietly. And you threw her away like garbage. That tells us everything about your character. The investors filed out one by one. Richard tried to follow, protesting, but Hassan held up a hand. Save it. We're done. When they were gone, only Victoria, Richard, Arya, and I remained. Victoria was crying silently, mascara running. You abandoned your own niece, she whispered. What kind of monster does that? Don't act righteous, Richard snarled. You married me for money. You've always known what I am. I thought you were ruthless in business, not heartless. Victoria looked at Arya. I'm so sorry. For everything. Save your apologies, Arya said coldly. You humiliated Marcus, called him worthless, sent him a wedding invitation to rub salt in the wound. You're perfect for each other. Richard rounded on me. This was your plan all along. No, I said honestly. I had no idea Arya was your niece until 3 days ago. But once I knew, yeah, I made sure the investors knew what kind of man you really are. I'll sue you. I'll destroy you. With what money? I smiled coldly. Without that investment, Castellano Industries is finished. You overextended on this deal. The yacht, the house. You were counting on that $750 to stay afloat. Richard's face confirmed it. You're broke, I said. Within 6 months, you'll lose everything. Victoria stood abruptly. I want a divorce. Richard laughed harshly. Fine. You signed a prenup. You'll get nothing. Actually, Victoria said quietly. Section 12, Clause 7. If you're found to have committed fraud or moral turpitude during marriage, the prenup is void, and I'm entitled to half. Abandoning your underage niece and lying to investors qualifies. For the first time, Richard looked genuinely scared. Victoria turned to me, expression broken. Marcus, I know I don't deserve anything from you, but I need to tell you something. She took a shaky breath. I'm pregnant. My blood ran cold. 6 weeks. She looked at me desperately. It's yours. Arya gasped. I felt punched. That's impossible, I said. We haven't been together in months. I haven't touched you since before your birthday. And that was 7 months ago, Victoria said quickly. I meant 7 weeks. I miscounted. I'm terrible with dates. You're lying. Arya's voice was hard. I don't even know you, and I can tell. The timeline doesn't work. How would you know? Victoria snapped. Because human gestation is 40 weeks, and 7 weeks is barely enough to confirm pregnancy. But more than that, you have that desperate look. The same look I had begging on street corners. You're terrified and grasping at anything. Victoria's face crumbled. Please, Marcus. Please. I made a mistake. I love you. I've always loved you. Richard was just money. You're the one I really wanted. Get out, I said quietly. Marcus, get out. Both of you. Before I call security. Richard grabbed Victoria's arm. Come on. We're done. Please. Victoria was sobbing. Please. I'm sorry. I'll do anything. But I just turned away, taking Arya's hand. We walked out together and didn't look back. 3 months later, I stood in front of the Castellano Foundation headquarters. Arya had insisted on starting a charity in her parents' name. With part of my wealth, we'd created a foundation for homeless youth, job training, housing, scholarships. Today was the grand opening. Nervous? I asked, as we prepared to cut the ribbon. Terrified, she admitted. What if we fail? What if we can't help anyone? We will. I squeezed her hand. You're going to change lives, Arya. Just like you changed mine. She looked up at me. Not just her beautiful face, but the light in her eyes. The strength, the compassion. I love you, I said. I love you too. We cut the ribbon together while cameras flashed and the crowd cheered. Later that evening, back at the penthouse, Arya found me on the balcony. The same balcony where we'd first confessed our feelings. I heard from Victoria today, she said quietly. My jaw tightened. What did she want? To apologize. Really apologize. She's divorcing Richard Final next week. She admitted she was never pregnant. Just panicking. She's going back to her maiden name. Moving to California to stay with her sister. How do you feel about that? Arya thought for a moment. Sad. Not for her exactly. Just sad that people can be so broken they hurt everyone around them, including themselves. You're too compassionate for your own good. Maybe. But someone was compassionate to me when I needed it most. She turned to face me. I've been thinking about something. What? You asked me to be your girlfriend for real. And I said yes. But I've been wondering. She took a deep breath. How would you feel about me being your wife instead? I stared at her. Arya, are you proposing to me? Maybe. I don't have a ring. I'm not even sure I'm doing this right. But I know I love you. I know you saved my life. In every way a person can be saved. And I know I want to spend the rest of my life with you. So yes, Marcus Chen, will you marry me? I laughed, the kind of pure, joyful laugh I'd forgotten I was capable of. Yes, yes, absolutely yes. I pulled her into my arms and kissed her while the city lights sparkled around us like a promise. I have something for you, I said when we broke apart. I reached into my pocket and pulled out a small box. Her eyes widened. You were going to propose? I've been carrying this for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. Looks like you beat me to it. I opened the box. The ring wasn't as large as the one Richard had given Victoria, but it was perfect. A sapphire the color of Arya's favorite evening sky, surrounded by small diamonds. It's beautiful, she whispered. Not as beautiful as you. I slipped it onto her finger. Hey, not as beautiful. Arya Castellano. You walked into my life when I was lost. You showed me what real love looks like. Will you let me spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you? You already do, she said, every single day. To be a 6 months later, I stood at the altar of a small chapel in the Hamptons. Not the Rosewood estate where Victoria married Richard. We'd chosen something smaller, more intimate. 50 guests, people who actually mattered. David stood beside me as best man. You good? He murmured. Never better. The music started. The doors opened, and Aria appeared. She wore a simple white dress, no train, no elaborate embroidery, just clean lines and elegant simplicity. Her hair fell in those waves I loved. She carried wildflowers. She was radiant. As she walked down the aisle, I thought about that rainy Tuesday when I'd found her in a doorway, how close I'd come to just walking past, how different my life would be if I had. When she reached me, I took her hands. Hi, she whispered, smiling. Hi, yourself. The officiant began the ceremony, but I barely heard it. I was too busy memorizing this moment. The way afternoon light caught in her hair, the tears shimmering in her eyes, the smile that made me feel like the luckiest man alive. I do, she said, when the time came. I do, I echoed. Then, by the power vested in me, I pronounce you husband and wife. You may kiss your bride. My son may kiss your bride. I cupped her face and kissed her softly, thoroughly, while our guests cheered. When we broke apart, she was crying happy tears. I love you, she said. I love you more. Impossible. Want to bet? She laughed. We have the rest of our lives to find out. 1 year later, the headline read, Quantum Solutions expands global reach with $3 billion valuation. I barely glanced at it. There were more important things. Aria lay on the couch in my office, one hand resting on her swollen belly. 7 months pregnant, more beautiful than ever. The baby's kicking, she said, smiling. Come, feel, 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 feel. I crossed to her and placed my hand over hers. Sure enough, a little thump against my palm. Active little thing, I murmured, just like her mother. We don't know it's a girl yet. I do. Mother's intuition. She looked up at me. Have you thought about names? If it is a girl, I thought maybe Grace, after your mom. Her eyes filled with tears. Really? When? Really? She gave the world you. That deserves to be honored. She pulled me down for a kiss. Have I mentioned lately that I love you? Not in the last hour. I was starting to worry. She laughed and swatted my shoulder. My phone buzzed. I glanced at it, then showed Aria the message. From Victoria. Saw the pregnancy announcement. Congratulations. You deserve all the happiness in the world. I'm sorry. I was too blind to see it. How do you feel about that? Aria asked. Nothing. It doesn't matter anymore. I pocketed the phone. The only thing that matters is us. This. I placed my hand on her belly again. Our family. Our family, she repeated softly. You know what's crazy? 1.5 years ago, I was homeless, invisible, convinced I didn't matter. And now I'm married to the most incredible man, about to have his baby, running a foundation that's helped 300 kids get off the streets. She shook her head. Sometimes I'm scared. I'll wake up and it'll all be a dream. If it is, we're both having the same dream. I kissed her forehead, and I never want to wake up. Outside, the city stretched beneath us. Somewhere out there, Victoria was rebuilding her life. Richard had lost everything. The mansion, the yacht, the company. Last I heard, he was working as a consultant, trying to rebuild. I felt no satisfaction in his downfall. No vindication. Just a quiet sense that the universe had balanced itself. And maybe that was the real revenge. Not destroying them, but building something so beautiful with Aria that their memory faded into irrelevance. I'm glad you found me that day, Aria said quietly. I'm glad you let yourself be found. Do you think we would have found each other if things had been different? If Victoria hadn't humiliated you? If I hadn't been homeless? Yes, I said without hesitation. Maybe not the same way, but somehow, because you're my person, Arya. In any universe, in any timeline, I'd find you. She was crying again, happy tears. That's the most romantic thing anyone's ever said to me. Get used to it. I plan on saying romantic things to you for the next 60 or 70 years. It's Dadaleste. Doing with reasons. Ende. Only 60 or 70. Fine. 100. 1,000. Forever. Forever works. Grace Chen was born 2 months later at 3:47 a.m., weighing 7 pounds 3 ounces. She had Arya's amber eyes and my dark hair and the loudest cry I'd ever heard. She was perfect as I held her for the first time. Arya, exhausted, but smiling beside me. I thought about the journey that brought us here. The humiliation, the pain, the unexpected meeting in a doorway. Sometimes the worst moments of your life lead to the best ones. Sometimes you have to lose everything to find what really matters. Sometimes the people who reject you are doing you the biggest favor imaginable. And sometimes, just sometimes, the homeless woman you hire for revenge turns out to be the love of your life. Grace yawned and nestled into my arms, and I knew with absolute certainty that every second of pain had been worth it for this moment. For this family, for this love, thank you, I whispered to Arya. For what? For being in that doorway. For saying yes. For choosing me. 1U9. For choosing me. For playing U9. Kindly subscribe and tell us if Victoria deserves a more terrible karma.